Hey everybody, this is just going to be a super quick demonstration of a fast way, probably the fastest way I know to create an animatic using After Effects. So let's jump in. So I think the best way to do this is to really start with Photoshop. Now that doesn't mean that you have to create it all in Photoshop. It means you can bring your assets in. They can come from Figma. They can be a photograph that you take of something that you drew. They can be photographs. They can be anything, but it's an image that you will create in Photoshop. That way you'll have one Photoshop document that has all of your images that will be in your animatic. And so as just a really simple example of what I have here is, you're going to want to set up the aspect ratio that you want for your animatic. I'm pretty flexible with what that is. It could be, it depends really on your story. It could be something, 4:3 or 6:9 or 9:6 or something like that. We can talk more about that depending on your project. But whatever it is, you pick whatever it is that you want. And then you have layers for all of your different images. And so in this one, what's nice about this is that in Photoshop, what I'm going to show you is a workflow. It's a little tricky, but it keeps things registered. And what registered means is that, if I have on one layer a person standing here holding their hand out, and I have on another layer an apple, and I want the apple to be on the hand, that's registration. I want the apple to be right there, and I want to keep that to be pixel perfect, where it just is just in the right place. And this process will help you with that. So I have an A, and I have a B, and I want the B to be right there, and I want the C to be right there. And so that and these are sequential frames. So it's going to go A, B, C, 3 frames. You have to imagine that it's going to be a lot more. So there's a really cool thing in Photoshop that you can do that will allow you to automatically generate art assets. This is a huge time saver. And I'm going to show you, there's a trick that you need to know. I could do it directly on this. And what that means is I could say, for instance, if I just say for layer A and I say a.png, right? And then I come up here and I say file, generate image assets. And what it will do is it will automatically, if I turn that on, which it is on, it's got a check mark. If I say image assets to have it create that, it'll create a folder. And everything that has a name on it like this, a.png, and actually if you Google it, you'll find that there's a whole language you can use. You can have different resolutions, you can process it in different ways, you can save it out in multiple file formats, et cetera, et cetera. This is a super time saver. And so in this case, I just say image assets. And so what that means is that if I come down to here, so here's my folder, and I have this file is test sequence demo 2, test sequence demo 2 record. So it will create a folder of that same name. And if I come down here, you'll see there's the A, and it's saved as a PNG file. And that's kind of awesome, but you'll notice that it crops it. It's, you can't really see when I pull it up, but you can see right here in the thumbnail that it's cropped it automatically based on transparency. So if we go back to this, you'll notice that this layer has transparency. So this is really what it's doing. So what Photoshop does is it will create a boundary right around this. It will save just that. And so I want to force it to save the whole thing. And so an easy way to do that is I can make a folder out of it. So if I hit a folder, and I put this in here, or I can hit Control or Command G will also do the same thing. And so now I'm going to rename this to A, and I'm going to put the file I want up here. And so because I'm going to be doing a sequence for an animatic, I'm going to say image sequence, and then I'm going to give it a number, and this is what After Effects will use to to create the final when it imports it. So I'm going to, a good way to do it, what most people do is 001 or and then you increment it through that. So 001, and it's going to look at that number and it will force it based on how the alphabetical order. Okay, so now if I do this now, image sequence 1. What's nice about this is that these things are changing. So if I forgot the .png, if I come up here and I say .png, what's nice is that this is live. Like this will change as you're changing things. It'll keep changing it automatically. It will continuously refresh this folder with the right stuff. It's really, really fantastic. But again, it's cropping that. So the easiest way I know to prevent it from doing that is if on the folder, on the group folder, I just hit this button down here to put a mask on it. If I do that, let's see, usually works. Yeah, so in that case, it'll force it to maintain the registration. So now it's going to save the entire size. It's not going to do the crop. And that's really the only way I know how to do that. So now I'm going to do that for all these other ones. I have B, and I had Control or Command G, and then I have C, and I hit Control or Command G. And then for this group, I'm going to name this, what do I call it? Image seq. It has to be the same name, 002. I think that's right. Yeah. .png. And a PNG is a file. It's one of the file formats that Photoshop will export using this process. And it's also retains the alpha channel, so you have the transparency. And this one will be image sequence 00003. Let's do it again. .png. And so now, and then of course I'm going to save it. You don't have to save it for it to come up here, but now I have, oh, these ones need their the mask. So again, do the same thing, come down here and hit the mask. Wait, what did I just do? Did the wrong thing. Oh, no, I did. Okay, mask, mask. This one is missing the name. So I'm going a little too fast. And when you go fast, you make mistakes. But the nice thing is this is a very fault tolerant thing. So there I have ABC. So now when I play out this animation, I should end up with this, but I want them to be played sequentially. Imagine these are frames in your animatic, and that's what I'm trying to show you how to do. Okay, so now I have a folder, and of course your folder is going to have, you know, the name of your show, it's, you know, whatever it is, and then it's going to have 001, 002, 003, and it's going to be for every image that you want to put into your animatic. Okay. If we were all together, I'd say, any questions? Okay. There's nobody here. I'm talking to myself. Okay. So now, if we open up After Effects and we say File, create a new project. And so what I want to do is I want to bring these in here. And so this process, there's many ways to do the same thing. This way is how I would do it, and it works all the time. And it's pretty straightforward. You select all of your images and you just drag and drop them into here. And of course, there'll be a lot of them. And I can also group these together with this icon. I create a new folder, and I'm going to call it source images. I don't know, whatever. And then I'm just to be organized, and I grab these and I drop these in here. So now I have them all in there. I'll have some links that will walk you through how After Effects works. It's a great program. I think you're going to love it. But if you follow these steps, this should just work for what you're trying to do. Mainly what you have here is this is your project. This is where all your images are, your source. It could be audio, it could be videos, whatever. And then this is your workspace. And then down here, you'll have your timeline. So anyway, so then you come up here and you can select all of your images. You select on one, shift select on the other one. And then here's the trick. So if you grab these, all these images are selected. And you come down here and you come down here to this icon. Everybody, this icon is a little hard to see, but it's got the color. This is make a composition. It's going to make a composition from these images. And if I just click on it, it brings up this really handy new composition from selection dialog. And so you want to have a single composition and you want to use the dimension. So here it's grabbing the dimensions for the video from the images, right? That's what you want. And so the still duration, this says, okay, so I'm going to hold on each of these images for a certain amount of time. Well, how long? And so you can say, well, most of them are going to be, I don't know, you figure out what they are. How long do you want to hold for each of those? So I have this set to be 5 seconds. So you can just type in here whatever you want. So this is going to be 5 seconds. And then I have this set to be sequence layers. And that means it's going to create a different layer for each one of these images. They're all going to be on a separate layer and they're all going to be spread out in time, right? So that you'll have a different layer and spread out in time. And if I turn this off so they don't overlap, then they will be butt to butt, end to end. So one ends and the other one starts. But for most animatics, you're going to want to do some sort of at least a little crossfade dissolve so it isn't quite so abrupt. And then you might have some cases where you want to then go back and make it more abrupt. But so if you say sequence layers, you click overlap, then you say how long is the overlap. So this is going to be, it's going to hold on 5 seconds for each image, and then there's going to be an overlap of 1 second. And then you have your transition, dissolve front layer, cross dissolve front and back layers, whichever you particularly want to do. Dissolve front layer is probably your best choice for an animatic, but not necessarily. Okay. So now when I hit OK, it's going to generate this sequence. And so this is what it did. A, B, C. So you have registration, one, and then the other, and then you have this crossfade, this cross dissolve where the front one fades. The back one pops on right away. So in this case, I probably did want to do a cross dissolve, right? Because the back one's popping on right away, and then the top one fades off. If your images are full screen, then this works fine. But because we have transparency, it's maybe not the best choice. Okay. And it's spread out over time. So this works just the way you would think for it has a timeline. You have your time here is in frames. You have down here, you can zoom in or you can see the whole thing. And so typically you're going to want to be changing these. And so one thing that's really important to know is when you're up here, these are your layers, right? So I have, like for instance, if I'm here, if I turn off A, you can't see A, you only see B. If I turn on B, you only see A. But inside, if you open up these things here, you'll see that I have lots of things that I can change and I can animate. And because of the way we set it up, it's automatically animating the opacity. This stopwatch is blue. That means that it's animating the opacity. And these little diamonds here, those are my keyframes. And I can use these arrows here to step between them. So I can step right to that keyframe, or I can step right to that other keyframe, and I can add new keyframes. And so the transition from here to here is basically changing the opacity from full opacity by that number to 0. Right? So I can look at it here, and this is the dope sheet format. I can also look at it here with this graph editor. I can sit here, and if I select the property, I can see it here. And if I hit this button down here, it'll frame it in the scene. So it's doing a linear interpolation. So I just want to show you a couple of things that are good for when you're working on these things. Let's turn this off. If I select all of these and I hit the letter, I can hit the letter, well, T is for transparent, and it will show me just the opacity. And I can toggle that on and off. But a handy one to know is U. If I hit U, it'll show me anything that has animation on it, right? So there's no animation on the last one because it just ends. So, but these two have an animation on it. So U is really useful for that. And then it shows you what you have. Okay. So now the kinds of things that you're going to want to be doing is you're going to want to be changing the time. And so if I just hit play, if you don't have this open, there's Windows preview is right here, Windows preview, and it might be closed up here. If you have one of these, it might be like this. Hit preview, it'll show you this. And then you have this button here. If I hit play, it'll show me what I have. Beautiful, beautiful animation. I'm going to show this to Patricia Hanaway because it's going to blow her mind. It's so beautiful. She's going to love it. Okay, so a couple things. What do I start with? I think I should show you the first thing is, most importantly, you're going to be adjusting the time. Let's say I want B to just be much shorter. Right? So what I can do is I can line these up. Right? This is when they overlap, right? And I can just say, let's make this shorter. So I'm going to make this one a little longer and this one a little longer. And then I want this one to be shorter. So if I grab it, I can move it to where I want. I can look at this timeline to figure out, well, how much do they overlap? And let's say something like this. And then this one, something like that. But now I have to move the keyframes, right? So if I can just do each one at a time. I can click and drag and select both, and I can just move them. A really, really useful keyboard shortcut is to hold down the control key. So I would probably just go like this. I would hold down the shift key. And as I'm moving it, if I hold down the shift key, it'll snap. You see how it's snapping to these? It makes it really fast. This also will go. If I hold down the shift key, it'll snap right in. So it's very, very, After Effects is really a nice program to work with. So again, I start dragging this and then I just hold on the shift key and I slam that guy in. Same thing with this one, bring that one in, bring that one in. All right, I use the keyboard shortcut to change this one. I don't want to show you that right now, but I will. It reminds me of something I probably should show you. So let's say, so now B is going to be much shorter. Now B is going to be held from, and I can change what these are. I'm trying to remember exactly. So these are in frames, and I have at 30 frames per second. For an animatic, you can do 30 frames per second, 24 frames per second, whatever. When you're actually doing your actual animation, you might want to do something different. But so as this is moving across, I can just look at these and I can say, all right, I want this to be from 5 seconds to 6 seconds. So this will be a 1 second fade. And so again, I can line it. So an easy way to do this is I can move the playhead. This is the playhead. I can just grab it up here and I can move it to 5 seconds. And then when I grab this, I can then hold down shift and it'll snap to it. And same thing with this one. I can just now snap that to it. So now it all lines up. That's at 5. And I want to move these, say, to 6. And I want to move this to 6. Right, so now that's all lined up. If I go to this, you see this one has a handle on it. I use the keyboard shortcut, but I want to show you a different way of doing that. So let me just undo that. So these buttons down here will change whether it's ease in or ease out. And you can just go in there and adjust these things. You can say, oh, I want to have this be an ease curve. And I can do this manually this way. I can say that's going to be this one. But another way to do that is a good way to know. If I select both of them, I can come up here to animation and I can say keyframe assistant easy ease. That means it'll ease in and ease out. And so now I have a nice softer view, right? And then I turn this back off and I go back to this one. You'll notice that the handles now are different. So it kind of shows me what's going on. And then I can come to this one and I can do the same thing. I don't actually have to go into that. I can just go animation, keyframe assistant, easy ease. And that's probably the fastest way to do that. But again, I can always just go back to this and I can select these and just make sure that's how I want them. And so then I can just, so that there I can change the opacity, I can change the timing. You can also, of course, add things to this. Like, let's say if you want to, you have certain scenes or something, or dialogue or something like that. That's a really useful thing to do. In here, I can just click in here and I can say new layer, and I can, thing that you're probably most going to want to do, shape layers are complicated. Adjustment layers we'll talk about later, but a text layer might be something you really would want to do. And so if you hit text, it'll open up an empty text layer. You can come up here and rename it to my text. And then I have in here, I have my text layer. If I select it, I can come in here and actually pick the text. Actually, the easiest way to do this is different. I can just click in here and I can just type in my text. Okay. That's probably the best way to do that rather than the way I did it the first time. To get rid of these, you just click on the layer and hit delete and it goes away. After Effects just kind of works the way you think it should work. But again, I can animate anything. I have all these things. I can animate aspects of the text. And I have the transform. I can animate any of these. So to animate something here, like let's say I want to animate the position. I can, let's say I'm going to, so I come up here and I just hit to move it. And I'm going to move it here at the beginning. And then I want to animate the position. So I can click on this and it will automatically create a keyframe there. Maybe that's not what I wanted to do. But anyway, I can grab this keyframe and I can move it. So I'm going to move it to the beginning. So now it's going to start there. And so now I'm going to move the playhead to where I want it to go. So maybe I want the text to come to here. And I want this text might be saying something about your scene. It might be saying, it might be information, might be the scene number. If you're being very organized, that'd be a great thing. But again, so I'm only animating the position, so I don't want to look at all these other ones. So with that selected, if I just hit P, it'll just show me the position. Or again, if I have U also works, right? So I can hit U, will just show me the position because that's what I'm animating. Right? And so on this layer, I can now come, I have one keyframe, so it's not really going to do anything interesting. But then I come here, and I'm going to just take this, and since this is being animated, I can hit this and it'll just create another keyframe, but I can also just move this. And you'll see that this shows me where it's going to move, because I can actually make this occur and do all kinds of cool stuff. But you can see now I have this keyframe and I have this keyframe. So as I animate across, the text is going to move. Okay. So now let's say I also want it to fade out. So for this one, I just click on this and then I'll say T for transparency and brings up the opacity. I click this, and so now that's got 100%. And I come back at the very beginning and I hit this button here. It's also going to be at 100%. Oh, I didn't want that last one, but anyway, so here I come here and I click this button. So now it's at 100%. So now it's just 3 keyframes. Starts at 100, 100, 100. Not very interesting. But I take this one and I can just take the opacity. I can bring the opacity down to 0. So now it's going to fade out. So let's watch what we've done. Oh, and I got an extra keyframe in it. Yeah, so I just want to delete that keyframe, so it's just the way you want to think it would be. I was just making sure I had the right one. Okay, so there you go. So then once you have that should be all the things you need to know to do your animatic, I think. And so then you want to come up to here and you want to say, well, trim composition to work area. That means sometimes this is your work area. This is really a useful thing. Sometimes you say, well, I really want this to actually end here. I don't want it to go all the way to the end. You can move this in any direction, right? You can just say, I want it to be there. And then you can trim comp to work area. We'll trim the composition to that area so it has the right length. We'll talk more about pre-rendering and all these other things, but the best way to encode this is to use Adobe Media Encoder. If you hit that, it will then bring up another piece of software. This sometimes takes a little while to load, but this is the way you should just get used to working, because it allows you to really do anything you want. It's very, very powerful in terms of encoding and compressing, and does a really nice job of it. So you can use After Effects to do any kind of editing. You can grab just segments from another clip, and I can show you how to do that. Whoa, why is all this stuff in there? This is from something else. So I think I can just, oops, click all of these. Yeah. Okay, so there was just leftovers from a previous project. I just wanted to clean that up. All right, so I want to record this. And so I just noticed that this image sequence, so this here with this icon, this is the same as this icon. This is called a composition. And this is what has these, the layers. I want to pull that out of the source images, right? And close these up. So I have all my, just want to keep this stuff clean. And so this is you select the composition that you want to render, and it's composition, add to Adobe Media Encoder. This takes a minute sometimes to load. And there it is. So it shows up here. It'll say image encoder. This might be set to something else, but I recommend you set it to H.264. This is your compression codec. And then this is going to be where you want to save it. I'm going to want to save this somewhere else. Just go here. I'll leave it right here, I guess. Image sequence 001. That should do it. And I didn't want to do that. Yeah, so that should do it. So then once you have it in here, it's all ready to go. And then you can come to some other things you can change, but let's not worry about that right now. If you set this to H.264, it'll grab all of the settings from the composition, and with that codec, it'll compress it. And I should probably show you that, but you hit this and it's going to render that out. So while it's rendering that out, I'll show you, if you come here and you say composition settings, this is where you have your resolution. And this will be the duration. And that's probably all you need to know for this kind of work. Okay. So when it's done, it'll tell you that it's done. And then you can come up to here and you go up to demonstrations, and you should have an MP4 image sequence like this. And there it is. How beautiful is that? Okay, so I'm all done. So that's it. that's all I had to show you guys, but I think that should be enough for you to do your animatics. And I'll see you on Tuesday. Bye.